It's fire time. SpaceX Superheavy Booster 12 static fire this week? Will Hurricane Beryl endanger Starbase? What are the chances? SpaceX is also preparing for Starship Flight 5 and Flight 6? Elon gives a new launch window for Flight 5. Is Stoke Space catching up to SpaceX? And is Europe launching an outdated Ariane 6 rocket? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. As Starbase is being hit by a storm, teams are trying to pack in as much testing as possible, which means that the rate of development is only increasing. SpaceX is also trying to build a new tower, but it seems flooding might endanger those plans. Want to find out more about this crazy week at Starbase? Let's do this, follow me. Today's round of news updates will kick off at Orbital Pad B. One would think the process would slow down as one reaches the more complicated steps in building a brand new launch tower. Not for SpaceX. It seems things have only accelerated and the tower seems nearly ready to stack. Both Section 1 and the tower base appear to be getting a lot of attention, but it mostly seems like internal equipment work and much less structural work. The tower base did have these installed on it, which are used to secure Section 1 on top of it. Stacking should happen soon. This was verified by SpaceX employees installing lifting eyes onto tower section number 1. These are giant pieces of steel that slot into the tower in each corner and are used as attachment points for the Damac CC-8801 crane. This means that SpaceX is in fact getting ready to stack the first section of the world's new tallest launch tower. By the time you're watching this, the lifting has likely already happened and the tower has doubled in size. After this first section is completely installed, the pace to stack future sections will only increase. This is because the tower sections are all fully equipped with piping and electrical systems, but the base wasn't, so it took so long to build. This makes the prefabricated tower sections a plug-and-play system with very little installation work. As much of a plug-and-play system as a Mechazilla can be. According to recent FAA documents, SpaceX aims to fully stack the tower by August 15th. Their plan obviously is to work lightning fast. Speed. Speed.
I am speed.
Hey, Lightning! You ready?
Now let's look at the area around the tower, which has seen significant work even after the tower has started stacking. This was once the area where suborbital pad B lived and all the high altitude flight tests took off from here. Suborbital pad B was situated on a raised concrete hill. I always thought this was partly for soil compacting, but also to prevent flooding during a storm. This is now being removed using explosives, which is odd since Hurricane Beryl is about to hit Texas. As a confirmation that SpaceX is actually concerned about this, we've seen crews preparing everything to be hit, such as the Damac CC-8801 crane, which was lowered to the ground Friday afternoon. This means there must have been some significant drawback to that hill that made hosting a tower on it a rather bad idea. The hill might have only been suitable for smaller ships and would not have been capable of supporting an entire tower and Starship for extended periods of time.
Drink, brother!
So SpaceX might have made the decision that flooding wouldn't be as much of an issue as it once was when Pad B was still there. Or maybe they decided that the hill just wouldn't be able to support the tower and flooding would just have to be. A hurricane warning notice was issued for the part of Texas, so SpaceX likely has to take safety precautions according to the county's order. Our team uses my radar to stay informed about Hurricane Beryl and its development and route. As you can see, Beryl made landfall on Monday morning near Palacios, Texas, as a hurricane 284 miles to the north of Starbase. Starbase reported a few gusts to 50 miles per hour and recorded half an inch of rain, but for the most part avoided the worst of the storm. With my radar, you know the weather, and so do I. See all that? That's what we use, and it's way better than tuning into your local TV weather report. This is the last hurricane that has come close to Starbase in the last couple of years. The last time Starbase saw a hurricane was in 2020 when Category 1 Hurricane Hannah made landfall north of Starbase breeze, bringing 90 miles per hour wind gusts. To stay updated about the possible risks for Starbase and our 24/7 cameras, I simply ask my Amazon Alexa to load my radar and listen while I prepare. I feel safer when I'm out chasing the space race thanks to the app that alerts me about critical weather and disaster warnings, letting me track hurricanes, wildfires, flights, and even satellites. Oh, my radar! As we've discussed in previous videos, the wind of this hurricane likely won't cause any severe damage to the facilities, if any at all. So don't believe the fear-mongering. The most likely damage that occurs is water damage. Flooding is often disregarded as most people are fascinated by the wind speeds of a storm or hurricane, but the water is actually what usually creates far more damage. Stay ahead, stay informed. With my radar, you're not just informed, you're prepared and you know what to expect. Now let's take a look at the prototypes that are being held up by this storm. So what is going on with Flight 5 hardware? Surely that's almost done, right? As a matter of fact, yes. If we stop at the high bay, we see Ship 30 being retiled. As a quick recap, let me go over why they are doing this. The tiles are being removed so that SpaceX can install an extra ablative heat shield underneath before replacing the top layer heat tiles with newer, stronger ones. This will help to ensure Flight 5 re-entry is as smooth as possible with no skeleton flaps. This is why over the past couple of weeks this prototype has been undergoing complete stripping of its heat shield. They redid almost all of the 18,000 tiles. The very tip of the nose cone is nearly complete with only a couple of missing tiles, same as the body. The only area that seems to be missing a significant number of tiles are the flaps themselves, which have had the ablative layer installed but no tiles over the top. Since we talked about Ship 30 and there are no other prototypes in the high bay, let's move outside and into the other bays. Specifically Mega Bay 1, the Superheavy Booster Bay. This bay is quite packed with 3 whole prototypes inside and a section of a future prototype. Today we're here for the next 2 prototypes to fly, Booster 12 and Booster 13. During Starship's 5th integrated flight test, Booster 12 will be the super heavy booster that lifts Ship 30 into space. If you remember from our last episode, we thought this prototype would be rolled out due to a closure that we had received, but it ended up being a tower segment instead. Although now we have some good proof that Booster 12 is ready to see some fire. Another road closure, identical to the previous one, was posted for the 8th of July with a backup the next day, which is the day you're watching this. At first glance, you would think this would be for another tower section, but we have some good hints that say otherwise. Another closure was also posted, but this closure was not simply a road closure. The closure is for July 9th with backups on the 10th and 11th, and it is for non-flight testing. With no vehicles at the launch site and no vehicles needing additional testing, we are assuming that this is for Booster 12's static fire. This would align with Musk's new Flight 5 timeline. He recently gave a fresh update on a possible launch window no earlier than August 5th. How does that sound to you? I would guess that the reason for the tower's roll last Tuesday was due to delays with Booster 12. The booster could have simply not been ready, or something broke that caused them to hold it back. In my opinion, Beryl is the most likely reason though. Rolling the booster out to the launch site right before a hurricane or storm arrives would be a daredevil move. SpaceX might have just decided that giving 33 Raptor engines a saltwater treatment from below right before a static fire wouldn't be the best thing to do. By the time you're watching this video, whatever testing SpaceX is planning will likely have already occurred, and we may just see super heavy fire up again. Now, before we take a look at Booster 13, which will lift Flight 6 into space, we've looked into our channel metrics and over 2 million returning monthly viewers have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you do not miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, including satellite, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress and countless other extras on top. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Now let's look at Booster 13, the super heavy prototype that will fly on the 6th integrated flight test. This booster currently resides in the Mega Bay besides Booster 12, and work is being done on it to prepare it for its own static fire test campaign. Currently, the booster lacks half of its chines and has no aerodynamic grid fins installed. It's also likely that the prototype is currently still missing some engines. Booster 13 had its cryo test campaign in April, which means it is all primed for a static fire after Flight 5. Just under the last episode, I saw an interesting question from one of you. I told you I love reading them, so here it is. If SpaceX can eventually reuse a Super Heavy booster several times a day, won't the ratio between boosters and ships be heavy towards more ships than boosters? Excellent question.
Excellent!
Yes, the current production speed with one ship per booster will change over time. At some point, a Starship launch site might have 1 or 2 boosters and a continuous stream of new ships. This is especially true when launching variants that don't come back down, like ships going to Mars or Luna HLS ships. Take a look at Falcon 9 as a hint. One booster will be able to send dozens, maybe even hundreds of ships into space. Since we're talking about Flight 6 hardware already, why don't we shift our focus to Massey's test site to look at some other important hardware. This is where vehicles undergo cryotesting as well as static fires now. If you remember, Ship 31 was recently moved here for cryotesting after its failed attempts back in May. Now the vehicle got another attempt which went down without a hitch. No more sparks. This means that it has completed 2 cryotests and likely has completed its objectives here, as most vehicles now undergo 2 cryotests. Ship 31 was ready to return to the high bay at the build site, and this is also exactly what happened. As we finished this episode, the prototype was rolled back to the production site on top of its test stand. Just like Ship 29 and Ship 30 before it, it was positioned inside Megabay 2 for Raptor engine installation. After this, it will likely be rolled out for a static fire before needing its own heat shield do-over. And just like that, Ship 31 and Flight 6 are on track again. Okay, Raptors aside, let's look at another company that is also developing a next-gen full-flow staged combustion engine. Of course, I am talking about Stoke Space, a company with ambitions as big as SpaceX's. I once had the honor of meeting Andy Lapsa and part of his team in person. These people have large ambitions and the know-how to back it up. Stoke is on track to become the only other company in the world to fly a full-flow staged combustion engine. Full-flow staged combustion engines, also known as closed-cycle engines, work by using all the propellant that flows through them, which results in higher thrust and higher efficiency. This works by flowing liquid oxygen and methane through their respective turbopumps. After the methane is fed in through the turbopumps, it travels through tiny bores in the engine bell, cooling the entire thing down. This is followed by it briefly splitting and entering 2 separate pre-burners, the methane pre-burner and the oxygen pre-burner. Both of these need fuel and oxidizer to light and thus ignite the engine. Now here's where the magic happens. The big difference between a wastegate engine, which wastes fuel, and a full-flow engine, which doesn't. A part of the potential energy in the rocket propellant is needed to drive the turbopumps to keep the engines running. While fuel is burned and wasted to drive the engine itself in a wastegate engine like the Falcon 9 Merlin 1D, it isn't wasted in a full-flow staged combustion engine. Here, it is run through the pre-burners to generate gas for the turbines that drive the turbo pumps before reintegrating into the cycle and ending up in the combustion chamber. After doing its work, the fuel enters the combustion chamber and gets shot out the flamey end. The liquid oxygen takes a very similar path, simply in parallel. A portion of the oxidizer flows through the methane pre-burner, which is controlled by valves, and the other oxygen flows through its own oxygen pre-burner. The oxygen also flows through a power-generating turbine before flowing into the combustion chamber. This is followed by ignition and the engine produces thrust. Simple, right? This is what makes full-flow staged combustion so desirable. With a little knowledge of how these engines work, you can begin to appreciate their pros and cons. For one, the engine uses every bit of propellant that's fed into it, unlike most engines which have to dump some overboard. But this system also has various drawbacks, such as engine complexity, but for an engine like this or a Raptor, reusability helps compensate for that. SpaceX achieved this holy grail of rocket engines, so what did Stoke do that makes it worth talking about? Well, with their new engine, they successfully completed their first hot fire tests. From what it seems, this engine has not been named so far and is simply referred to as the new full-flow staged combustion rocket engine. What would you name the engine if you could? Write your suggestion in the comments below. If you don't know, this engine will serve on the first stage of Stoke's new Nova rocket. Now that's a good name. The rocket is surprisingly similar to Starship, with the first and second stages being fully and rapidly reusable and the whole body being built from stainless steel. The first stage will have 7 of these engines and will be capable of a return to launch site landing. Does that ring a bell? The second stage, on the other hand, will use this curious looking engine with 30 combustion chambers. Totally crazy. The engine will be fueled by liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen as opposed to methane on the first stage, and will actively cool the bottom of the stage with cryogenic propellants for a safe re-entry. The company is certainly onto something with this new fascinating design, so it'll be interesting to see if they can make it into space. Now let's shift from talking about American launch providers to launches taking place in Europe. Ariane 6 is launching. During the 1970s, many countries began getting involved in the space movement, but many nations couldn't get their satellites into orbit without having pre-existing launch infrastructure. This is why a group of European countries formed the European Space Agency. Under contract by the French-led European Space Agency, Arianespace developed a brand new launcher named Ariane 1. A new family of rockets was born, the Ariane launchers. Ariane rockets flew consistently along a line of 5 vehicles. The most recent of those vehicles being Ariane 5. This vehicle flew from 1996 all the way until 2023 over 117 times. Very successful. Despite its great achievements such as launching the James Webb Space Telescope and the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, the vehicle was growing old. This meant that in 2023, ESA and Arianespace decided to end its operations. The vehicle had already flown too long, as its younger brother, the Ariane 6, was facing major delays. This meant that Europe lacked a heavy lift launcher and the replacement was still months away. You may wonder what's different about this newer vehicle over the previous iteration. How does it hold up compared to something more cost-effective like, let's say, a SpaceX Falcon Heavy? After all, the goal of this vehicle is to significantly lower the cost of launch compared to Ariane 5, which costs $200 million for each launch. At the same time, they want to be able to launch more frequently and with heavier payloads. But does that set it apart enough to survive in today's very competitive market? Although the vehicle is not reusable, they were still able to cut costs very cleverly. This is accomplished through a very modular design. The first stage consists of a Hydrolox core powered by an upgraded Vulcan engine. This is assisted by 2 or 4 solid rocket boosters or SRBs. It means that the rocket can be customized to the payload by removing or adding SRBs. The upper stage is powered by the brand new Vinci engine, which has a higher specific impulse for higher energy orbits. These upgrades make the vehicle a much more appealing option than Ariane 5, and despite not being the newest or cheapest rocket on the market, it is still a reasonable option. That is, if Falcon Heavy didn't exist, which is by far the most appealing option in the category. Falcon Heavy can hoist 50 tons into low Earth orbit while recovering the 2 side cores, which costs about $97 million. It can also lift 63 tons for about $150 million when all 3 boosters are expended. On the other hand, Ariane 6 can only launch 24 tons for a higher price of $106 million. This makes Falcon Heavy a far more affordable option for low Earth orbit missions and single payload geosynchronous missions. Ariane 6 really shines in its ability to take 2 satellites to different inclinations in geosynchronous orbit. This means that 2 payloads can be stuffed in the fairing and Ariane 6 can then take them both to different geosynchronous orbits in one launch, something that the Falcon Heavy struggles with. This means that for the cost of $106 million, you can have 2 payloads in a geo orbit instead of roughly $200 million for the same on a Falcon Heavy. Not even Falcon 9 is able to match this price, with 2 launches costing roughly $134 million combined to GEO. Now, this is only helpful if the 2 satellites weigh below 7 tons each, as that is the capacity of the Ariane 6. That means that if you need multiple smaller payloads in GEO, then Ariane 6 is the way to go. But in most other cases, Falcon Heavy usually beats it out.
The SpaceX Falcon Heavy wins this round.
Now it seems that Arianespace finally got its game together. In March, it was announced that the new rocket would finally fly on July 9th, the day this episode was released. The vehicle was finally integrated inside the assembly building, which is located in French Guiana on the east coast of South America. The payload for this first flight is a rideshare mission featuring many smaller payloads paid for by different commercial companies and schools. This flight will finally open a new era for European launch services and will influence many companies that already have flight contracts on it, such as Amazon, ESA and the European GNSS agency. With 39 contracted launches, Ariane 6 isn't biting the dust yet, but more affordable and reusable rockets like Stoke Space's Nova will soon come online to overshadow it. Good luck to Arianespace in an ever-changing launch market where small companies outmaneuver older giants. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and it helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next episode. Flickety flickety flick. Increase. Increase, increase. The pace of stuck after this first section is completely spit up. Flow. Hydrogen. Whee!